Hello everyone. For my second learning demonstration, I will be talking about lithium mining and how it is having a toll on the environment. Lithium is everywhere in our phones, our laptops, and especially in the electric vehicles many see as the future of clean transportation. As the world races to cut carbon emissions, demand for lithium has skyrocketed, with projections showing a four-fold increase by 2030. But while lithium is fueling a cleaner energy future, the methods used to extract it, especially in places like South America's Lithium Triangle, are raising serious environmental concerns. This presentation asks a critical question: can clean energy still be clean if it damages ecosystems and depletes local water supplies? The Lithium Triangle refers to a region spanning parts of Chile, Argentina, and Bolivia, which is home to more than half of the world's lithium reserves. Yes, half of the world's lithium reserves. Now, these reserves lie beneath vast salt flats, including the Salar de Atacama in Chile, the Salar de Uyuni in Bolivia, and Argentina's Salar del Hombre Muerto. Rich in lithium-rich brine but incredibly water scarce, this region is ecologically unique and home to indigenous communities who have lived there for generations. The global race to electrify transport and store renewable energy has put immense pressure on this fragile region. Unlike hard rock mining that is used in Australia and China, South America's lithium comes from a salty underground water known as brine. Companies drill deep into the salt flats and pump this brine to the surface. There, it's left to evaporate in vast open-air ponds, sometimes for over an year, until lithium concentrations are high enough for chemical processing. While cheaper and less energy-intensive than hard rock mining, this method consumes enormous amounts of water and permanently alters the hydrology of desert ecosystems. The Atacama Desert in northern Chile is one of the driest places on Earth. Yet lithium extraction here is incredibly water intensive. It takes over 500,000 gallons of water to produce a single ton of lithium. This water is pumped from underground aquifers and used in the evaporation process. But as mining expands, it drains water from the same sources used by indigenous communities and small-scale farmers. The result? Well, dropping water tables, dried out wetlands, and increasing desertification across already fragile ecosystems. Salt flats like the Salar de Atacama are not just barren lands, they support unique and delicate ecosystems. Flamingos, for example, depend on shallow lagoons for feeding and especially breeding. But lithium mining disrupts these water sources, causing lagoons to shrink or vanish entirely. Wetlands that once sustained local wildlife are drying up, and plant species adapted to these desert margins are vanishing. What's left behind is a damaged ecosystem, one that may take centuries to recover, if it ever actually recovers. For the indigenous communities living around the Lithium Triangle, the mining boom is not progress, it's disruption. Groups like the Atacamano, Quechua, and Lekin Antai have depended on local water sources for generations to farm, herd, and survive in one of the harshest climates on Earth. Today they are watching their wetlands shrink, their crops fail, and their sacred landscapes become industrial zones. Many say they were never properly consulted before mining actually ever began. Their voices, often drowned out in global conversations about clean energy, must be heard. As countries push to decarbonize, demand for lithium has soared. Global electric vehicle sales have skyrocketed in the last decade, and so has the need for lithium batteries. But while the benefits of this shift are global, less fossil fuel use, fewer emissions, the environmental costs are intensely local. Communities in the Lithium Triangle are losing access to clean water, land, and cultural continuity. This raises a key ethical question. Are we simply shifting the burden of pollution from one region to another, or are we actually providing a solution? In response to this growing criticism, both corporations and governments have introduced reforms. Companies like Albemarle and SQM have released sustainability reports promising to reduce water use and engage local communities. EV giants like Tesla highlight ethical sourcing as part of the supply chains. Meanwhile, countries like Chile have proposed national lithium strategies with stronger oversight. But watchdogs and indigenous leaders argue that many of these efforts remain very surface level. Greenwashing, limited enforcement, and poor transparency continue to raise doubts about whether current reforms are enough. Environmental watchdogs have been sounding the alarm about the hidden costs of lithium mining. Groups like the IUCN and regional nonprofits such as Argentina's FARN have published detailed reports documenting aquifer depletion, ecosystem loss, and systemic failures in community consultation. Earthworks, a US-based environmental advocacy group, warns that current lithium sourcing practices mirror the same extractive colonial models they claim to replace. Now, these groups are not anti-transition, but they demand that clean energy must be just, equitable, and sustainable for all of the people involved and all of the wildlife that is also present in these regions. Well, the good news is there are better ways forward. Direct lithium extraction, or DLE, offers a cleaner and more efficient method of obtaining lithium with far less water. Several companies are piloting DLE in the US and Argentina. At the same time, battery recycling is growing rapidly, allowing us to recover lithium from used electronics and EVs instead of extracting more from the earth. Researchers are also exploring alternatives like sodium ion and solid state batteries. These innovations won't solve everything overnight, but they show that it's possible to move toward cleaner energy without repeating the extractive mistakes of the past. This slide brings us to the heart of the dilemma. Lithium powers electric cars that promise a cleaner, low carbon future. But in the lithium triangle, clean energy comes at a high environmental and social cost. We must ask, who is benefiting and who is actually paying the price? Can we call it sustainability if it drains water from indigenous communities and leaves behind ecological damage? A just transition to green energy requires to not just shift technologies, but to rethink how and where we source our materials. Lithium is often described as the fuel of the future, but as we have seen, it comes with consequences, especially for ecosystems and communities of the lithium triangle. If we want a truly just energy transition, we can't just shift emissions from tailpipes to distant deserts. We must shift our thinking from short term extraction to long term responsibility. The question is not whether we should decarbonize, but whether we can do it without repeating the injustices of the past. So, in conclusion, that choice begins with awareness and with what we choose to see. And because a just transition to clean energy not only demands innovation, but it also demands accountability. Thank you.